Hi, everyone. My name is Erin McCool. I am the Director of Education and Strategic Initiatives at Riverbend Environmental Education Center. And while I know that we're all at home right now and not in our normal routine, we're going to come to you from Riverbend with some nature science lessons. It's a great time of year to get outside and learn about the world around you. So today's lesson is going to be where is Turtle's home? And we're going to learn about animal homes and habitats and adaptations of turtles. Now, before we get started, I want to make sure everyone takes 1 minute. So if you don't have all of your supplies ready, I want you to grab a journal or a notebook. If you don't have a journal or a notebook, you can just take a piece of paper and something to write with. This is going to be our nature science journal. Okay, are you back now? You've got your nature science journal. This is really important because what we're doing is we are collecting data when we go outside. Today we're going to be scientists. How many here in this room know what a scientist is? I'm a scientist, you're a scientist, even your little brother or sister can be a scientist. But first we have to make sure we brought our scientist tools. We have our notebook to record our observations, right? What else do we have that are science tools? Everybody point to your eyes. Your eyes are great to make observations and think about what you see. What else do we use for observation? How about our nose? We can breathe in and smell the smells around us, even the stinky ones. It's a great way to find out about things. What about our sense of touch, right? We touch things. We can see if things are rough or smooth. What else? So we said sight, smell, touch, and our taste, right? One thing that we don't do when we go out on nature hikes is we don't really taste anything that we don't know what it already is. So don't taste anything unless you have a grown-up with you. Great? Okay. So in our nature science journal, this is my daughter Emma's journal that she is keeping right now. Every day we go outside, she draws a picture, she makes some observations so she can go back and see what she's learned along the way. So what I would suggest, if you can write, I want to see you write a couple of notes on top of your nature science journal. This will help you to remember all about your experiences. So some of the things that scientists look at are name, date, weather, and time. So if you have a piece of paper and a pencil, write those things at the top. If you need help writing, you can ask a grown-up or your older brother or sister can help too. So now that we have our nature science journal ready to go, what we're going to do first is think about what that word habitat means. That's our first vocabulary word. Right here. So just so you see, we're looking at the word habitat. How many people think they know what that word means? Anybody know what that word means? Think about it for a second. Okay. If you guess that a habitat is a home, then you are 100% correct. A habitat is where an animal lives. Now, there are 4 important things that we find in a habitat. Every habitat has food for animals, water for animals to drink, shelter, a place to hide, and space, right? Space to move around. Can you imagine if in your habitat you had to share a room with everyone in your classroom? Right now, you probably miss your classmates, so that might be a good thing. But say we had to stay at home for a really long time with everyone in our class, we wouldn't have a lot of room, and after a while, we probably wouldn't get along very well. So space is a really important thing in a habitat. Food, water, shelter, space. Very good. So our first task for you, you can push pause, and I want you to take a second in your nature science journal and draw a picture of your habitat. Okay, so now that you have your picture of your home all drawn out, what I want you to do is put that to the side for just 1 second. And we're going to move on to another thing that is going to help us figure out where turtles' home should be, which is our big question for today. So the next vocabulary word, are you ready for it? Is everybody ready? Our next vocabulary word is, it's a big one, adaptation. Okay, you guys can say that with me. We'll sound it out. Adaptation. Adaptation. And so an adaptation is anything on an animal's body or the way they behave that helps them to survive in their habitat. So you guys all have an adaptation. Let me see you hold up your hands, wiggle your fingers, right? You guys have these thumbs that are opposable. Let me see your opposable thumbs. And you can use your thumbs to grab onto things. You can grab the food that you eat. You can hold a fork and eat your food with your fork. You can climb trees. You can do all kinds of cool things. You can write in your journal with your opposable thumb. That's a great adaptation. Now, I can talk to you about your adaptations and you can tell me what they are, but do you think that a turtle could tell me what their adaptations are? Let's think about that for a second. I don't think so. Turtles can't talk, right? Neither can birds or crayfish or snakes or all of the things that we're going to find when we go out in our backyards. So we have to use that science tool, that observation, and we need to look carefully, and we need to learn things by looking carefully. So we're going to practice on something that's not a turtle. We're going to practice using our skills of observation on something you might find in your backyard if you're lucky. This one looks a little bit different than what I normally find in Pennsylvania. So hold on one second, I'll get it for you. So here we are. Check it out. Very cool. Now, I'm not going to tell you what this thing is because remember, we're making observations. And an observation is not a name or an identification. So if I were to say, this is a fish, first of all, is that right? No. Second of all, is that observing anything about this object here? No, not at all. It's actually just telling me what it is. And once we know what it is, then there's nothing really left to explore. So we're going to start by using our powers of observation. And if you have something like this at home, you might find this in your toy box or your brother or sister's toy box, cousin's toy box. This is a really cool tool. It's called a hand lens. They come in all different shapes and sizes. I know I have another one in my garage that is shaped like a big, huge flower, which is really cool. So if you have a hand lens, it's a really great tool to look up close and look at fine observation details. So first, what I'm going to do though, without my hand lens, is I'm going to make observations and I'm going to tell you all about the things I notice about this. So I notice that the brown edges here are very light in color. And I also notice that there's darker brown in the middle. And I notice, now you probably can't tell this from the screen, but I notice that it is very sharp and prickly. So what I want for you to do, while we have a second, you're going to hit pause and I want you to find something either in your backyard or at your house that you can make observations of. Okay? Are you ready? Go get your item and come back. All right, so you got your item, so you can come along with me. So I've made some I noticed statements. I'm also noticing there seems to be these stripy things here. And I noticed that I picked this up off of the ground, which is another clue there. So I want you to take a moment and write down all of the things that you notice about your object. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, so you have all of your notice questions, right? Very good. So the next thing that we're going to look at is what do you wonder about all of these observations you made? So you probably have this great long list of observations, and let's think about why some of these things are the way they are. So I wonder why this is so prickly. It's actually hurting my hand right now. I wonder why you see these different colors. Like, could that be because the sun faded it? Or maybe it was just made that way? I don't know. Okay, so take a minute and I want you to write down all of your I wonder questions. Ready? 1, 2, 3, pause. Okay, so now that you're back, you've got your list of I notice, your list of I wonder. I want you to also think about what this reminds you of, because if you can make a connection between this and something else, it makes it easier to remember. So I think that this here reminds me of a pine cone. Oh, wait, I may have just told you the answer to that. I'm really excited. Now you have built some really important science skills. Number one, we know what our science tools are, our 5 senses, our sight, our smell, our mouth, and our sense of touch. Number two, we've really made some good progress in practicing observation. So now you all know you have to look very carefully to make observations. And the more time you spend making observations, the better picture that you have of your item. So hopefully in your nature science journal now, you've got a nice list of things that you notice about your item. Maybe you've drawn a picture of your item and labeled it, or maybe you've just made a list. Either way, you have now a record of this really cool thing that you've observed. Now today, when you go outside in your backyard, I want you to pick another item, something that maybe you find on the ground, or maybe go up to a tree, and I want you to do the same thing. Now remember, write your name and the date and the weather in your nature science journal so you can keep a catalog of all of the observations that you see. Now, remember what we're talking about today. We're talking about turtles, and we're talking about where turtles live. How many of you have seen a turtle in your backyard, or in a park, or in a forest? Or maybe at Riverbend or the zoo, right? So we're going to think about turtles that we find here and what type of habitat they live in. Now, in order to be able to tell their habitat, remember, we're going to look at their adaptations. We're going to look at those things on their body that help them to survive in their habitat. Now, to get us started and get us sort of warmed up, I've got a really great book we're going to read. So our book is called Where Should Turtle Be? And this book is written by Susan Ring and illustrated by Lori Allen Klein. Now, I always like to take a look at the book and look for some context clues about what we think we might find when we open up. So we've got a bear. We definitely have a turtle in here. It looks like he's sitting on a log, maybe in a forest. So let's see what's going to happen inside. Okay. So I'll put it right there so you can see. Late one night, when you couldn't hear a sound, there came a cracking and a popping, something moving on the ground. Inch by inch, a turtle slowly broke away from its nest on the beach and headed for the bay. Now, does this habitat look like anything you've seen before? How many of you have something like this in your backyard or your neighborhood? Or maybe this is a place that you have visited once before in the summer. Guided by the lights, he knew they were the key to finding his new home, wherever it should be. But the lights weren't stars, and the lights weren't the moon. They were houses and cars, and he turned away too soon. So see this light here? To a baby turtle, that looks an awful lot like a moon, so it's easy for him to get lost. And there goes little turtle. When Turtle stopped to rest by an old and crooked tree, he said, "I think I'm lost. This isn't where I ought to be." Little Turtle cried. With his tiny voice he said, "I'm not where I should be. I'm in the woods instead." This looks an awful lot like our cover, right? We've got the log and there's the bear. A bear came out when he heard the turtle's plea. He said, "A box turtle, that's what you could be. You wouldn't have to swim. You could feast on fruit. You could crawl around the forest and sleep a lot to boot." So there's a picture of a box turtle, but he doesn't look like our turtle right here. He's got stumpy feet, bright colors. Turtle tried it for a while, but he couldn't stick to it. He was not a box turtle, and he just couldn't do it. "No, thank you," said the turtle. "It's just not me. I really don't think this is what I'm supposed to be." And so he walked on. When Turtle stopped to rest by a cattail in the sun, he said, "Where am I now? Can you help me, anyone?" Little Turtle cried. With his tiny voice he said, "I'm not where I should be. I'm by this pond instead." A frog jumped down, and when he heard the turtle's plea, he said, "A painted turtle, that's what you could be." Look at that beautiful painted turtle. You could sun on the logs, you could munch on bugs, you could stroll around the pond and slurp down slugs. The turtle tried it for a while, but he couldn't stick to it. He was not a painted turtle, he just couldn't do it. "No, thank you," said the turtle, "it's just not me. I really don't think that's where I'm supposed to be." And so he walked on. Turtle was unhappy, trudging through the salty marsh. The sun was hot, the mud was deep, and the habitat was harsh. He pulled and yanked and flailed around in the icky, sticky, muddy ground. Turtle tried without much luck, but he sat there stuck in gobs of muck. A beetle flew down when he heard the turtle's plea. He said, "A diamondback terrapin, that's what you could be. You could crawl on the mud, you could crunch salty snails, you could eat clams and—" "Wait!" the turtle shouted. "I won't try it for a day. I'm not a terrapin. I must get on my way." Then the turtle whispered, "You know, it's just not me. I really don't think that's what I'm supposed to be." The beetle tickled the turtle's shell. The turtle laughed so hard that pop! He flew from the mud about 1.5 miles. Little Turtle cried, and with his tiny voice he said, "I was looking for my home and ouch, my head is sore instead." A crab scurried down when he heard the turtle's plea. He pointed and he said, "Out there, that's where you ought to be. Out there, little turtle, it's well within your reach." Then Turtle looked around and saw he had landed on the beach. Inch by inch, he headed out that way, from the soft and sandy beach to the salty silver bay. Then the turtle slid in and shouted, "This is me, 'cause I'm supposed to be a turtle in the sea." Pretty cool, right? So if we look at Turtle's adaptations here for the sea, he's got these flippers that he can use to push the sand away and swim in the water. His shell is kind of small, right? Compared to the size of the rest of his body. The shell is kind of small. It's probably a little bit lightweight, right? It's heavier than what we have, which is nothing, but it's maybe not as heavy as like a giant Galapagos tortoise or something like that. So pretty cool. It was a great story, and we've got some really cool turtle facts at the end here too. So we're going to, now this is my favorite part, now that we've learned about habitats and we've learned about adaptations, we've learned a lot about turtles. Would you like to meet a real live turtle? I have one here with me, and we'll bring him out to show you. Now that we've had a chance to learn all about really cool turtle adaptations, we've taken some notes in our journal, and we've learned about all of the different habitats where we can find turtles. I didn't realize that we could find turtles at the beach and in the bay and even in the forest. So we thought we would meet a real live turtle. Now with me today, I've got my family who are helping me take care of Bubbles, who is a box turtle from Riverbend. Bubbles is one of our animal ambassadors at Riverbend, and he is spending a little bit of time with us at home. He's going on walks every day, getting lots of cool treats, and we're going to think about his adaptations today. So I'm going to put Bubbles down, and I'll talk about him while you have a chance to observe him moving around and doing all of the things that turtles like to do. All right, so here's Bubbles. For everyone at home, now would be a really good time to pull out your nature journal and start recording and writing all of the things that you notice about Bubbles. Watch all of the adaptations that you're looking at. So one of the things that comes to mind right away is this shell. Bubbles has this really thick, heavy shell that helps her to camouflage in the forest. All right, I hope that everyone had a really great lesson today and learned a lot about turtles. We're going to review a couple of really key concepts here. So we were talking about where turtles live and what a habitat is. So remember from the very beginning, our habitats require 4 big things: food, water, shelter, and space. So as you're going out into nature, I want you to be thinking about the wildlife that you might find and where they're going to find their food, water, shelter, space in the habitat. Also, we started those amazing nature journals, and your nature journal can look however you want. You could have a notebook. You could just have pieces of paper that you kind of staple together, whatever works for you and whatever you have at home. And I encourage you, as you are exploring nature, to continue to make good observations about the things that you're seeing. Now, the other really cool term we learned today was adaptations, right? And our adaptations are things on our body or ways that we behave that help us to survive in our habitat. So for Bubbles, what were her adaptations? Her adaptations were her shell that helps her to blend in, her beak that helps her to rip and tear leaves and eat worms, and those big stumpy feet that help her to navigate the forest floor and climb over logs and things like that. We also noticed that some turtles have different adaptations depending on their habitat. So I hope you had a really great time today. I encourage you to continue to get outside. We're going to be talking about different animals and different habitats throughout this whole series. Remember to bring your nature journal with you every time you come, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.